All right. Hi there. First of my video series outlining some more advanced techniques in no code agentic content operations, keeping this super raw, no fluff, and not a whole lot of editing. Hi, how's it going? I'm Chris Bryce. I've spent my entire life essentially architecting components of content operations. And in the past, that's typically been fairly siloed. Um, Websites as the publishing experience or hub, email, social channels, LinkedIn, kiosks, watches, displays, all kinds of places where content gets published. But what's happening now is enterprise is finally calling this what it was. It was kind of marketing stack in the past. And I think what it really is it's the concept of content being part of a supply chain from production to publication to constant tweaking and tuning in the places where content lives on. So again, I've been architecting the various components of these, and it's great that the AI tooling is now harmonizing the entire content operations of things. So what I wanted to go through is I have a rare moment in time where Dotfusion has been selected to be a preview partner with Storyblok and their release of FlowMotion, which is essentially n8n, completely embedded inside the Storyblok experience. And I wanted to get some videos out on how non-developer folks are able to architect and deploy content automations, and in particular for this series with Storyblok. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what content platform you're using. There's just modifications to the architecture of the content operations. So again, Chris Bryce, thanks for joining. Yeah, I am the CEO of Dotfusion, and Dotfusion is the company that implements this architecture and the technology that powers your content operations at scale. We typically work for mid to large enterprise, and that technology is essentially the websites itself, the content supply chain, and the different tools that are used in that process, AEO and SEO tooling, because the content needs to be basically come in really dialed in, especially now for AEO. It's a little bit more dynamic best practices than SEO pure. And then kind of putting the last bookend on everything is the agentic workflows and automations. So we're going to just get into that. And, just quickly, what do I mean by a content supply chain? I'm still working on this diagram, but I think this kind of does it. Essentially, we've got a bunch of content and it needs to get produced and published and tuned over time. So most content these days is persistent outside of ads and campaigns, which have a tendency to kind of come and go. But most of the content we create now is sending signals to answer engines. So we want to have it structured properly. And it lives on. So essentially, the supply chain itself is the creation of content, its adaptation, different languages, kind of slightly rebranded for different channels or tone and voice changes subtly. There's often governments or governance workflows that the content needs to abide by. And then there's the whole discoverability tactic. So right now what's happening and why this is becoming a more consolidated concept is that AI is part of all of this. And it's one of the things AI does really well. It does research well, does math well, coding well, and it manages content operations really well as well. So it's kind of part of all of the stages. So essentially you've got the supply chain of content coming from an idea to production, and there's assets and copy to be written and variants to be created, and it gets published somewhere. Typically the CMS, I'm not sure if it's going to be called a CMS for much longer, maybe your content operations hub. It essentially, though, that's where the content essentially is kind of processed and published. And like I mentioned before, that can go to a variety of different sources. And kind of on the other side of that is, there's existing content for enterprise that has been kind of in artifacts and lingering around here and there that needs to be either deleted, fine-tuned, morphed into other existing assets. And we kind of see that as a whole exercise in making existing content more healthy, more dialed in for SEO, AEO, more appealing to answer people's questions, and staying in compliance with accessibility. And of course, you need reporting suites to let you know if what you're doing is making any sense and driving some value for your organization. Turning into a slightly longer story to get things started. Essentially, though, we're going to be talking over this next bunch of videos about how to set up Storyblok as a non-developer. And I'm talking start to finish, setting up your spaces, your stories, your blocks, no developer required. I'm always thoughtful towards having humans around to make sure everything is cool, and that's no problem. But this does unblock total creative freedom for publishers or teams that are in kind of an agentic headspace. This is what we do for companies, but I love sharing this. I'm not only kind of the founder CEO person, but I get my hands in here and I really love knowing this so I can help architect stuff for my clients better. So essentially the tools we're using are Storyblok, and then Storyblok has branded its kind of full integration with n8n as FlowMotion. We'll be getting into that. I think we'll go roughly five, 6 episodes. Right after this, we're going to talk about getting Storyblok all set up. I'll just go through that really quickly. In this episode, next we'll get an MCP server connected through Cloud Code or Cowork. Again, this is all for non-technical folks, but maybe systems-minded marketing people or content folks. In episode 3, we'll look at how do we customize blocks and actually not only just push content into Storyblok, but how do we create components that are highly customized and creative and without having any developers, not even front-end guys. Then we'll get into FlowMotion in more detail, and maybe we'll build out a bunch of videos, one highlighting each different n8n workflow. And then we'll get into some more advanced content automations. But at the end of the day, we're here, episode 1, and maybe that's enough for now. I'll fire up the next episode where we're going to get into like how to just connect Storyblok and code and get things set up. So I hope this seems interesting. If you're watching this, you are definitely into the scene. But this is what's happening at the enterprise level where we're looking at real content operations and velocity at scale. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Oh, I guess like this or share it and add some feedback below because I am pretty new to creating videos and happy to get your advice.